54 years ago today, November 10th, 1969, Sesame Street made its television premiere. And ever since then, it has continued to help children grow up to be better people, teaching not only letters and numbers, but also certain life skills. In my mind, what makes Sesame Street so successful is its Muppet characters, created by Jim Henson. When Jim joined the show, he brought a few pre-existing characters from other productions that he had done prior to Sesame Street, who have appeared in various segments. And of course, among Jim's most famous creation is Kermit the Frog. Kermit was one of Jim's pre-existing characters who became a part of Sesame Street, and is pretty much known as the face of the Muppets. He started out on Jim's first ever series, Sam and Friends, before becoming a regular during variety show appearances and TV specials, finally becoming a regular on Sesame Street, and really took off as host of The Muppet Show. During his time on Sesame Street, Kermit had many responsibilities. He was most frequently used in segments as a lecturer or a news reporter, but it wasn't too often that we saw him out on the street. However, I came across an episode of Sesame Street's early years that featured Kermit in a lead role, so in celebration of Sesame Street's anniversary, I'm looking back on another old-school Sesame Street featuring the one and only Kermit the Frog. After Mr. Hooper and Gordon, portrayed at this time by Matt Robinson, exchange hellos, Gordon notices the viewer and welcomes them to Sesame Street. To start the day, Gordon invites some of the local kids to play basketball, and who should appear but Kermit, wanting to play basketball too, but starts sneezing and coughing. Gordon starts to notice that Kermit sounds sniffly, but Kermit denies it. But the more Kermit coughs and sneezes, the more Gordon and Mr. Hooper are convinced that Kermit might be sick. Mr. Hooper offers Kermit a handkerchief, but Kermit insists that he doesn't need one as he starts to sneeze. The humans are insistent that Kermit has a cold, and after another sneeze, Mr. Hooper takes Kermit to his store to check his temperature. Susan, a nurse, does so using a thermometer, and as she learns about Kermit's symptoms of sneezing, coughing, and headaches, she discovers that Kermit has a bit of a fever. Kermit thinks that a bit of a fever is fine for him to play basketball with Gordon and the kids, but Susan disagrees and surmises that Kermit indeed has a cold. Kermit is still in denial until he sneezes one more time, and then he admits that he doesn't feel well and wants to go to bed. Susan offers to make a bed for Kermit and have him rest at her house while she takes care of him. At Susan and Gordon's apartment, Susan has a bed all set up using a box and some pillows and blankets. It kind of looks like something for a pet. Kermit is all prepared for bed in his very nice looking pajamas and says that he doesn't want to go to bed, insisting that he isn't too sick to play with his friends. But the nurse knows best and has Kermit get in bed and rest. Susan takes off to run some errands and insists that Kermit stay in bed. After Susan leaves, while Kermit gets himself all comfortable, he feels bored and worries that his friends will wonder where he is. Outside, while Gordon and Susan are putting together a list of things to get for Kermit, they hear him talking to Tracy, one of the kids, explaining to her that he's sick, but Susan has been taking good care of him. Susan spots him and tells him to go back to bed. Almost instantly after, Susan and Gordon can hear Kermit again from Big Bird's nest, explaining to Big Bird that he's sick, but is in good hands with Susan. And again, Susan hears him and heads that way, questioning why Kermit is not in bed. Kermit explains that he was worried that his friend Big Bird might be worried about him, so he was just letting him know what's up. But now he's done doing that and says he's going back to bed, but he has one more friend to talk to, Molly. So for those of you who don't know, Molly was a mail carrier who only appeared on Sesame Street for a single season, and the actress who played Molly was Charlotte Rae, who most of us know best for her role as Edna Garnett on the sitcom The Facts of Life. Molly questions why Kermit's not in bed if he's sick, and Kermit answers that he's on his way back to bed, but keeps stalling just as Susan arrives once again. Kermit tells her and Gordon that he feels lonely in the apartment, so Gordon comes up with an idea and sets up Kermit's little bed on the apartment windowsill so that he can say hello to anyone who passes by while also resting up. As the day continues and Kermit gets his rest, he starts to get bored until Big Bird comes by to check on him and bring him some toys to play with. These include a baseball and a jumpy rope. However, these toys are usually played with another person and are more physical outdoor activities. This makes Kermit feel sad until he gets a visit from Tracy, who, as luck would have it, has a sketch pad, crayons, and a comic book, and offers to trade with Kermit. So they make a trade, and Kermit does some drawing while Tracy plays outside. Later on, while Kermit is having an ice cream cone, he gets a visit from a Muppet boy named Hathaway. I've seen this puppet before in previous episodes of Sesame Street, and he has had a few different names from time to time, while still maintaining the same performer, Carol Spinney, one of the few semi-regular characters that Carol has performed on Sesame Street, apart from Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch. Unlike the rest of them, Hathaway actually visits Kermit inside of the apartment. As Kermit continues to enjoy his ice cream cone, Hathaway wishes that he had some ice cream. Kermit tells Hathaway that it's a kumquat-flavored ice cream, and Hathaway very excitedly tells Kermit that kumquat is his flavorite favor. I feel like that was just a blooper that they kept in the final cut, but as I was watching this, I couldn't help but laugh. Anyway, upon learning that kumquat is Hathaway's favorite favor, he offers a lick to Hathaway. But before Hathaway can have a taste, Mr. Hooper explains to Kermit that if he shares his ice cream cone with Hathaway, he'd also be sharing his cold. But Mr. Hooper can see that Hathaway wants an ice cream cone, so he offers one for him at Hooper's store. Kermit says, "Make sure it's kumquat." Kermit, believe me, Mr. Hooper has any kind of ice cream flavor that there could be. I saw one episode where he had sardine flavored for Oscar. Side note, are kumquats any good? I don't think I've ever seen one available in the grocery store. Or maybe I have and just didn't notice. Either way, I know what's going on my grocery list next time I have to make a run. After a day of rest, Luis checks Kermit's temperature and he notices that it is down and he's free to go play. But Kermit was just beginning to enjoy resting, and as Gordon announces the sponsors, he tells Luis about how well he was treated. I remember seeing a very similar thing with Big Bird where he had a really bad lung infection and Maria took him to the hospital, and Big Bird was very scared and angry most of the time. But of course he was treated very well by the doctors and hospital staff, and by the time he was all better, he didn't want to leave. Anyways, that's all. I have to say, rewatching this episode and seeing Kermit there made me realize that he was really a good fit to the Sesame Street team, and especially in its early years was a very important part as well. I've shown it before in a previous video, but I have a copy of the Best of Kermit on Sesame Street VHS tape, which includes quite a few classic Sesame Street moments featuring the legendary frog as a celebration of the show's 30th anniversary, and with today being the show's 54th anniversary, that's why I wanted to make this video. While Jim Henson didn't exactly create Sesame Street, it was his vision and involvement that made the show such a big hit, and with Kermit there at the start, I think that's probably what helped, because Kermit was already an established character from other projects that Jim had done before. Even though Kermit no longer is a regular on Sesame Street due to him being owned by Disney, I don't think any of us will ever forget Kermit being part of the show, whether he was a news reporter, a teacher, a singer, or a kid on the street like in this episode. It's also really nice to see him in the 50th anniversary special where he sang with Elvis Costello, or his little cameo in Elmo's World focused on frogs. To conclude, let me know in the comments some of your favorite Kermit the Frog moments from Sesame Street. I'd love to hear them. And I'll see you next time. Hope you all have a sunny day.